Welcome everyone to the August 10th edition of Wines Day. Tonight I'm joined by Mike from Two Tone Selections, maybe some Monsieur in there somewhere, we'll figure that out. We've got two awesome Loire Valley wines today, a Sauvignon Blanc and a Cab Franc, two just varietals that I personally drink a lot of, and I'm just really excited to get into the glass tonight. We also have two cheeses. The first one is called Piper's Pyramid. It's from Capriole, which we featured in the past. The reason I chose this cheese tonight is that, one, it's a little different, but it's also very similar to a cheese called Valençay, which is from the Loire Valley, which is where these wines are coming from. And the shape is known as a truncated pyramid. So if you take a pyramid, you chop the top off. And as I was doing some research, the history of the truncated pyramid was that Napoleon had just been beaten by the Egyptians, and he was so furious, and he was tasting his cheese and he just lopped the top off of the pyramid. And so they just started making them as truncated pyramids because he was so, infuriated by his loss to the Egyptians. Anyway, it's delicious cheese. It's got a short white rind on it called Geotrichum, so it's a little funky, but the acidity of the Sauvignon Blanc and the kind of the pyrazine flavors, which will be this nice unifying theme tonight, they do really well. The other cheese, this guy right here, it's called Spark and Hoe Red Leicester. It's made by this man and wife couple who inherited a herd of cow and kind of revived this lost cheese. It hadn't been made in about 50 years, and it used to be just made from the leftover production of Stilton, and they had this extra milk, so they would make cheese out of it. And then they realized that it's delicious, so this family kind of revitalized it. It's known for this kind of chewy but creamy texture at the same time. It's been colored with annatto, which is a South American bush seed to give it a lot of color. Kind of a marketing ploy the Brits used a long time ago, but really delicious, cloth-bound cheddar style. And I think just the earthiness that the cab and the earthiness that cloth-bound cheese have will do really nicely together. At least that's the hope. Anyway, without further ado, Mike is going to introduce us to a Little Sheep Sauvignon Blanc. Cheers.
Cheers. Well, cheers, everyone. Thank you first and foremost for having me. Zach, it's a pleasure being here. And my name is Mike. I work for Two Tone Selection. It's an importer distributor out of New York City. Monsieur Mr. Touton is the person that started the company, back in the early 90s. And basically the focus back then was mostly Bordeaux wines, and hence our portfolio is very, very, big. But throughout the years, then, little by little, there were more regions added, more countries, more endeavors were started, and then we started importing wine. Then because that's a very, very important point, because a lot of the stuff that we have are in our book, it's pretty comprehensive. A lot of the things that we have are direct imports, which allows us to offer a quality of wine, which is great for the price that we can, bring it in for. And these two wines today are just a couple of the examples, because there's a book full of great wines at great prices. We work a lot with local co-ops in certain countries in the world, just like France, Italy, South Africa, New Zealand, so on and so forth. And I love the fact that we picked these two wines, because Loire Valley, there is a lot to talk about Loire Valley, and Sauvignon Blanc, Cabernet Franc are great grapes, and until today, I completely forgot, and Zach reminded me, these are the mommy and daddy of Cabernet Sauvignon. I know, it was oh, man, big one. I completely forgot about that. Yeah, for anybody knows about how Cabernet Sauvignon started, besides, yeah.
Plus a stork, right? Isn't that how great babies are born too? Just
yeah, it was a spontaneous mutation in a vineyard. So the two varietals are basically varietals that you find in Bordeaux, and those two vines were like growing very close. And then throughout the years, there was a spontaneous mutation, and now you have from the mutation of Cabernet Franc and Sauvignon Blanc, you have Cabernet Sauvignon. So that's a little bit of a fun fact, if you want to
Yeah,
tell.
yeah. Cab Franc is like the father of Merlot.
Merlot, yeah. I don't
Yeah, like a crazy amount of grapes. You would never think.
Carmenere, yeah,
Right.
there's like quite a few of them that are they are basically the Cabernet Franc is really daddy.
Right.
You
It's
know,
kind of crazy to think about that this grape, which typically in the States, at least, I would say less than 3 years ago or more than 3 years ago, you would rarely see Cab Franc outside of Loire, or in like really, really big blends, but you wouldn't see it at a, sub 20, sub 15 retail in a single varietal that was actually super tasty.
yeah.
So that's, I'm really excited about that. But the Sauvignon Blanc also is just kind of like you were saying, like Loire superstar. A lot of folks think of Sancerre when you think of Loire. This is just a little further to the southwest of where Sancerre is, so kind of in the dead center. I'll see if I can find a Loire map.
I don't know if I can. Let me see if I can. I have one pulled up on the screen, like one of those wine folio ones. I don't know if I can share my.
Able to share now.
Let me see.
I am a huge Wine Valley fan as well. For those folks who want to do some extracurricular activity, Wine Valley is a really great resource for maps, for flavor profiles, just for in general knowledge that's super easy to digest.
Yeah, so basically, this is the Loire Valley. So Loire Valley is huge because, it goes from all the way from the ocean west, all the way inland, bordering Burgundy and going down to the mountains. So basically, some of those regions, especially the ones in Sancerre, which is right around here, Sancerre. Some of these, I don't know if you can see my mouse like pointer over there. But anyway, some of these regions to the right of Sancerre, to the east of Sancerre, it's basically Burgundy. It's Chardonnay land. Close by, you see Chablis up to the upper right side of the screen. Very, very close to Burgundy. So, but I mean, it's an amazing Loire. It's an amazing wine region. It clearly it came, or it was brought to our more mainstream attention in the last, I would say, probably 15 20 years, really before the stars in French wine, or wines from France were Bordeaux, Burgundy, and then little by little, especially Burgundy, throughout the years, because of that popularity, all those wines started getting very pricey, and so there was the need of captivating everybody with French wines, and Loire offered a variety of different grapes, different appellations, different terroirs. That was unbelievable. Loire is such a great region. Most famous grapes besides the Sauvignon Blanc and Cabernet Franc, you have some Melon de Bourgogne, which is basically to the very, very west of the appellation of the region, which is Muscadet, the most important wine. You have Chenin Blanc, you have some Gamay, some Pinot Noir, and then there's some also minor local grapes blended in. But it's a region, Loire, that super famous, very historical. In the year 2000, actually, it was awarded UNESCO heritage status, because of all the cultural and gastronomic thing that the region would bring to France and to the world. And so it was awarded that status, which is amazing. Back in the medieval ages, it was a land where all kings would go, and they would have castles. The clergy would have properties, and they would, it was a great region. Clearly, it extends all the winemaking. It goes It extends throughout the region, across the region rather, over the Loire River, nothing. It's just exciting. It's um, an amazing discover as being able to bring stuff of this quality for these prices. It's really interesting. And Sauvignon Blanc, clearly, as you said, it's Sancerre and Sauvignon Blanc. Sancerre is kind of the benchmark of Sauvignon Blanc drinkers around the world. However, throughout the years, even Sancerre got really pricey. And because of that fame, because of all that publicity, marketing, what have you, Sancerre got, it's popular. It's on every good restaurant's wine list. They're very pricey, and you are able to get stuff Sauvignon Blanc wise from the Loire Valley that is priced just right. That'll give you an understanding of what Sauvignon Blanc is from France, from Loire Valley, without having to break the bank, basically. And
yes, Sancerre just had a really bad vintage too. So 2021 vintage is super limited. We've run through vintage for the year on I think 3 different SKUs already, and we just try to find one that we can get a case of or so, and it's great. Just cost of entry is at least 25, if not $30. I mean, they're great. Who doesn't love Sancerre? But there's a lot of really, really great Sauvignon Blanc that's a couple of kilometers away from Sancerre, and
correct.
This is one of them. I mean, this doesn't have quite the same acidity as a Sancerre would have, but it's just this really pretty white flowers on the nose, I think. And it still is bright. It's not like a flabby wine or anything like that. You can tell. I've had some Touraine that is doesn't have quite enough acid for what I typically look for, and it tends to be a little rounder. But this is, I think, really a nice balance between both weight and acid.
I couldn't agree more. It's a very, very good wine. Let me just tell you about the actual label, the leadership. It's one of our endeavors around the world. We have so we work with a lot of co-ops, France, Italy, as I mentioned before, South Africa, so on and so forth, and we produce these wines with the leadership label. Which bring basically a great value from small vineyards that they don't have their own winemaking facility. We produce the Sauvignon Blanc of the Loire Valley. There is a Pinot Noir Rosé. There is a Chardonnay from generic Vin de France. There is a Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand. But the Sauvignon Blanc from Loire Valley, it's very, very tasty. You're right. It does not have the all that streak of acidity that sometimes you would think or you expect out of something that comes out of Sancerre, for instance. And also in the last few years, everybody that looks at Sauvignon Blanc, all they can kind of think of or relate to is New Zealand, standard, which is very green, super grassy, grapefruit everywhere. This one is a little more old world style. There is a little bit of a citrus note is there. There is a nice balanced acidity. There is some green apple as well. It's not overly aromatic, but it's lively and crisp. I mean, for $14.99, this is,
Oh yeah, it definitely would easily compete with especially the New Zealand stuff, but the other French Loire. Definitely, it's about I think $4, $3 less at least from some of from the same exact area of the world. I really like how when I think of Loire sometimes too, can be really savory on the Sauvignon Blanc, and I find that this has a little bit of that note, but it's not overwhelming at all. And honestly, if you're into the Piper's Pyramid yet, that little bit of kind of yeasty, funky thing that the rind has going on, and this I think are going to be quite delicious once we get into cheese night here after Wines Day.
I am bummed that I didn't make it and get the cheese, but I'm coming tomorrow. Okay.
Plenty more to the co-op.
I mean, I won't drink the whole bottle tonight, so I'll save some for tomorrow and taste it with cheese. but the goji sounds amazing, and with the paprika like outside. Um, let's leave it at that. I'm making myself.
Yeah, all right.
But nothing. It's but do you like it? Have you tasted the Sauvignon Blanc? You enjoying it? Everybody else, what do you all think? Yes, thumbs up. One thumb up. Hey,
Good.
Maggie. Very
Uh,
good.
I'm gonna also share the tech sheet, Mike, and we can just go over that real quick.
Yeah.
So we get, as we almost always share on Wednesday, we get a tech sheet. It tells you, producer, where it's from, all that kind of fun stuff, little descriptors. These are really great info. A lot of it's available online. I can share about 99% of them with folks. If you're ever interested, please feel free to email me. I try to be extra responsive with that kind of stuff. And if you want to, see the piece of paper that the bottle has attached to it, then just let me know. Always happy to do that. Another thing that I found, and again, speaking of Wine Valley, is a description of what pyrazine is.
Yeah.
And those are those flavors that, especially in these two wines, can be super present. The grass that, Mike, you were just talking about, bell pepper, which we're gonna get into a little bit with the red chocolate notes. Elderflower, which I think is actually what might be going on for me today in this class, as far as those like white flowers. The fresh green peas, I'm not getting that, but I'm okay to not get some green peas this afternoon. There's also, I think, a canned green bean can be on that weird realm somehow. But this is kind of love-hate for folks, just pyrazine in general. I think it's extremely present in like Napa Cab. So, these two grapes, forming Cabernet Sauvignon, and that pyrazine note definitely comes pretty fast. Not always. Carmenere, another, kind of relative of Cab Franc, definitely has like roasted red pepper and smoky vibes to it, which are great for grilling in this time of year, especially now that we get, into the mid 80s instead of the low hundreds or whatever we've been in. These are really, really great for this kind of transitional time of year.
I kind of like it. I feel that sometimes stuff that comes out of the new world, like Chile, for instance, that note is much more like pronounced.
Yep.
In a way, and actually I enjoy it. I think that it makes it for a very food-friendly wine.
For sure.
Love it.
Yeah.
I mean, the over here, yeah, we'll taste the Cabernet, but the Sauvignon, yeah, it has the hint of grass, but I really like that. It's funny because how the taste evolves throughout the years. When I were younger, maybe I wouldn't have cared about that type of flavor profile. But like along the years, when you start to appreciate a little bit more what you're drinking, how to pair it, or how it goes well with food, that like a vegetal note, it's really pleasant to taste.
Yeah, and I think also just the fact that, like, just to your point, as the years go by, we just enjoy more wine, we enjoy more food and different kinds of food and different kinds of wine. And so those flavors that you might have hated, 3 years ago, you might have found something that has that in a way that kind of clicks with you and can be super enjoyable. For me, like Carmenere or Cab Franc, like that, you can put a little chill on this wine too if you wanted to. For grilled stuff, especially like grilled vegetables.
Yes.
Really, really great, just really kind of lean into those flavors versus trying to shy away from them. And you can kind of come up with, things that you are really excited about. But does anybody have any questions about the Sauvignon Blanc? I think it's time for red wine, Mike.
Well, oh my God, yes, let's do it, because we've been talking about it now for a few minutes, and I'm like,
Exactly.
it's time to
Right.
taste some of it.
I'll go ahead and put up that tech sheet too real quick so you can get that going. There we go.
Cool.
Look at that pretty picture there in the background.
Very
I wouldn't mind being there right now.
Oof, are you preaching to the choir. It's Chemin des Anges is another like co-op that we started working with, I would say this year, and they have a line of like regular Cabernet Franc, which we're tasting tonight. They have a Cab Franc Rosé. They have a Chinon, which is basically the appellated version of the Cab Franc, more typical of the terrain de Loire Valley. And then they also have like a Pinot Noir. And so the Cabernet Franc, first things first, another great value for the price. This is something that it's old war made. Everything is stainless steel, but it's it comes from vineyards along the Loire Valley. This wine is like super pretty. It's very mellow. It's got some nice. You don't get on the nose right off the bat all those like green or the pyrazines, but eventually like you will get more of it probably in the palate. But it's very gentle and soft on the nose with a bit of like a kind of a strawberry instead of like you're more like your darker fruit.
Sure.
Like Chinon, like more classically made at times, could have it's usually aged a little bit in large casks, like large oak. This one is all stainless steel, so the fruit shines a lot. There's a floral component to it. It's a pretty barrel wine. It's really
it's pretty, yeah. There's a lot of, I think when you said strawberry, that definitely is what I smell. It almost smells like it reminds me of like an unoaked Tempranillo in a way, just like on the nose, but like palate wise, it's super soft. Which I think would be really great for spicy foods, just because it's that big bout of tannin to kind of fight against the spice and really just lets the it'll come through really well. Palate wise, this is just like nice and soft and really easy, pretty wine. That if you want red wine when it's 87 degrees and rainy, at least that's what it is here. This would still do really nicely. And it can handle a little bit of a chill if you want it to. I mean, throw it in the fridge for 15 or 20 and it's not gonna hurt anything. If anything, it'll mute the little bit of acid there, maybe a touch, but I think it'll just really come back to temp very nicely and be really enjoyable.
So the beauty of it is that because a lot of the wines of the Loire Valley are more like approachable, from a price standpoint, consumers have been more open to taste everything that comes from there. Clearly, given that the prices of regular Burgundy and other good wines are like very high. The Loire Valley throughout the last 10-15 years has seen, as we said before, people have been more interested and in tune with Loire and gave Loire wines a shot because they would bring in a very like it's a great everyday wine. It's a great tasting wine, and you don't have to break the bank, but clearly you have stuff like this that it's a daily drinker, and you also have producers that make bottles of wine. They're like in the hundreds of dollars, clearly, right? But not everything starts at a certain price point and it goes up. You can find quality everywhere within the range of like $10-12 up to like a lot of money. Right. And Loire, it's been really interesting. I mean, this Cabernet Franc, like on the nose, you don't feel that like pyrazines, that those like pepper, like green pepper. When you taste it on the palate, then you kind of get some of that vegetal note, but it's very soft. It's very well integrated. It's a very pleasant note. It's not it's not the first thing that you taste, and then you get some of the tannins. This is a very pleasant drinking wine.
And it's not when speaking of pyrazine, it's not that fresh green bell pepper. It's more of those like can be more on like the roasted red pepper side. So like a little bit of not sweet, but for lack of a better word, green pepper for me.
Mature.
Yeah, right. It can be sharp and kind of aggressive. And this is just really well integrated. I think as it's kind of opening up in my glass too, this, that there's still a little bit of tartness. So it's like those raspberry kind of flavors come through, the strawberry flavors come through, and really, really pleasant for sure. I think, talking about Loire, Muscadet is another really well-known wine from there. People still unfortunately have the misconception that if it says Muscadet, it sounds like Moscato. It's not the same. It's actually pretty opposite. We should get all the Muscadet producers just to start calling it Melon de Bourgogne, even though it's the opposite side from Burgundy, so that might be confusing too. But we'll let the French figure that one out. You should also drink Muscadet. It's delicious. We'll have to do one of those one day. Or if
has anybody tasted Muscadet before? Anybody knows about this wine? It's a wine that still comes from the Loire region. However, it comes from the very part of the region that faces the ocean. Yep. And so a lot of these vineyards have this influence from the sea. And so when the wine is produced and made, there is this very distinctive salinity along with a citrus. And they're very there is a very sharp acidity. There is a little salinity. Those wines, when I hear about Muscadet, the first thing I think of is oysters.
Oh, yes.
Like Muscadet and oysters. I'm like, I'm okay. Don't give me anything else. 20 of those, please. And,
and another bottle of Muscadet.
Yes, please. Keep the second one close by. This is going to be very fast. The Loire Valley, there's also like a Vouvray. So Chenin Blanc is another one of the most important grapes of the region. And Chenin Blanc is a grape that is super versatile. You have a wine produced in every style, from the very sweet to the very dry. It's kind of a more rounder and richer flavor profile. And Vouvray or Chenin Blanc in general, it's a very pleasant grape, still nice acidity, but a different flavor profile altogether from the Sauvignon Blanc. But another key player of the region. Oh my God, can't stay away from this glass.
I know. What does everybody have from?
What do you guys think?
I love. Polly's in love. I like it.
Yes. No.
That's what we like to hear, or see rather. Maggie's doing a big heart symbol. Thank you, Maggie. So Mike, you also have a Chinon, and you were talking about the difference between the Cab Franc Loire, the Chinon, even though it's the same grape. What's the biggest difference between the two?
So Chinon is basically a village or a town within the appellation of Touraine. And so all the Cabernet Franc that is vinified and produced within the town limit of Chinon gets the Chinon appellation, which is more recognized and more a kind of valued, versus if you get Cabernet Franc that is sourced from around or all around the Loire Valley, then you get something that it's not appellated Chinon, but it's basically Cabernet Franc from the Loire Valley. And also the appellation, and usually that works for basically every appellation in France. Whenever it's something that it's specifically appellated, such as Chinon, can be Sancerre, can be Vouvray, can be Muscadet, those wines have to be produced in a more strict way, because the appellation dictates its the percentage of the wine or the aging profile. There's different things, parameters that need to be followed in order for those wines to have the appellation, versus more generic other wines produced around France. Gotcha. I think I have a bottle over here. So
perfect.
So Chinon versus
Right.
Cabernet Franc, but clearly, so Cabernet Franc. The difference is that the Chinon comes from that one village town rather, and maybe the aging on it is a little bit different. The Cabernet Franc that we're tasting tonight, it's a very young, bright wine. It's a 21 vintage. So basically, it was made this past year, bottled, and then boom, sent out, and we're drinking it, we're enjoying it young. The Chinon is a 2020, so it's got a little aging on it, probably in large oak. But the large oak doesn't give much flavor to it. It kind of more mellows the flavor profile and
Okay.
further. But it's interesting. It makes it like there's some nice, the hearth and the fruit, are more round and
Right.
they're interesting.
That's great. I think, Chinon and Cab Franc are both great Thanksgiving wines too. We're like 3 months out from there. If you are tired of Pinot Noir with your turkey, if we can even get any Beaujolais Nouveau this year for that, this I think would be a nice substitute. As far as harvest is concerned, most of the time, harvest happens in September-ish, September, October. So what Mike was just saying is that these grapes came from September, October of last year. They were then vinified in stainless, put into a bottle, put on a boat, and then they got to us. This is a wine that's meant to be consumed and enjoyed. You don't necessarily need to let it, rest or anything like that, where the Chinon, especially with that extra kind of oak aging, will really give it a little more longevity. So Lou has a question. How do you expect the current hot weather will affect the next year's wine? That is a bajillion-dollar question, Lou. If anything, what I'm seeing is new areas kind of opening up. Very, very prominently is British bubbles, which I have tried. I have not purchased any for the co-op because they're still kind of expensive. But basically with climate change and global warming, the ability of grapes to grow further north is happening, and they're able to grow some really, really close to what Grand Cru Champagne just in the south of England, which is super weird considering
Right.
like 10 years ago or 5 years ago. As far as the overall heat, typically heat will transfer into riper grapes, and it can also be detrimental to crops because a lot of rules in the DOCs or the Dominion Origin Control. So how like cheese, how wine is certified to be, it is what it is kind of thing. Like the Chinon, what Mike was just talking about. A lot of folks are not allowed to water. So if that is going to potentially change because you're going to have to water if it's too hot for no water for your grapes. We'll see what happens with that. But typically when grapes are exposed to more heat, they get riper. Look at California wines versus northern French wines, aka Burgundy, or even most of the Loire is still on the upper half of France. And so you're going to start getting darker, riper, richer flavors. You're going to get more alcohol content. This is right at 12%, which is 0.5% lower than your typical bottle of wine is 12.5%. So you're going to start seeing like a profile shift from leaner, what you would consider old world wines to kind of a new world style, just because that's going to be the base material they have. And a lot of appellations are not allowed to acidify. They're not allowed to chapitalize. They're not allowed, which is the addition of sugars to kind of give you the balance if you have too much acid or not enough sugar. So it's going to really change a lot of how wine is made and what the end result is in the bottle. And when we started Wines Day almost 2 years ago now, we had a Bordeaux owner with us, and they are starting to grow non-Bordeaux varietals in their vineyards. So they're experimenting with Syrah because it can handle the heat a little more, Yep, exactly. Darker, smaller berry, looser cluster, like all these things as far as the varietals compared to Merlot or Cabernet Sauvignon or Cab Franc, to see if they can get something to kind of take hold. They won't be able to call it Bordeaux, which is kind of crazy. But that's, the current laws that have been in, for Bordeaux, like the 1865 is when they like gave the Premier Cru and all the growth status of things. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. I'm nervous for some of the producers. Stylistically, wine that you're drinking right now in 5 or 10 years, probably not the same. Hopefully they can still make wine, like that's going to be a big issue, is just the further south you go, the hotter it is. So Allison has a question: how long does it take to plant new varietals and actually get some fruit? From my understanding, about 2 years in the ground to get any kind of fruit, and then from 3 to 5 years to start to get actual fruit that you can vinify. And then I'd say 20 years is probably the most productive, and then kind of just less productive from there on out. But there's vines that are 100-year plus.
Yeah.
They just don't produce a ton of grapes, but they make really, really concentrated wine, which is kind of the whole idea. I guess California is probably most, known for, old vines which you'll see quite often as like 60, 80, 100-year-old vines. But the vines themselves are producing 1 or 2 clusters versus, kind of vigorous growth vines that are producing 2 or 3 kilograms per plant. So it's gonna be a really big shift with climate change. Hopefully we can get some offset. Who knows?
I think that the importance also for people, like when you see something that says old vine, as Zach was saying, so when a vine grows older, the production kind of like gets lost. You don't have as much grapes produced as they did when they were like younger vines. However, the quality of those grapes that are produced are better, because given the fact that you have less grape on the vine, those flavors are more concentrated in those more like smaller like yields, and so you get the fruit shines more. There's like more quality to the grape per se that produces the wine, and so when you read like old vine, usually it's synonymous for something that has a little more like a higher quality because of the lower yields. And then just to piggyback on Lou's question about the, I think that there's gonna, and exactly right, it's gonna change, I guess, the way that we will perceive and drink wine in a few years, and what we have tasted until now, and what it'll taste like in a few years down the road. However, if wine gets too ripe, the winemaker could probably and possibly harvest it earlier, so that it doesn't get as ripe or as sugary or as rich. But so instead of harvesting it in September, October, it'll be like the beginning of September, because the longer it stays, the more sugar the wine will get, and then it kind of throw off the the winemaking process in a way.
Right. And honestly, we might even see a total shift of the harvesting season. Like you're saying, like we might see instead of harvesting September, October, like you were just saying, it might be August, September, and depending on how mild the winters get too, there's a whole cycle for the growth of grapevines. And they do, if you might also see if it's overly producing, you might see some fruit drop. So people like specifically going and cutting grapes to not let them grow. If you are having, you have a garden, you might do that with your first kind of couple of fruitings on your pepper plant or your tomato plant, get rid of the first 2 or 3 peppers, so that the plant tries to make some more grapes, or or whatever you're doing. So it's gonna really impact things. Hopefully some scientists and some vignerons are looking into this more seriously than quite a few other people are looking at climate change, because I still want to drink wine, but I also don't want the world to be on fire. So I'd be willing to sacrifice something if I have to.
So you'll see there's going to be, as you said, in England or Great Britain, there is going to be newer places where people will find it more suitable to grow vines and to make wine that'll taste more like what we conventionally, drink. So I won't be surprised if even in the States, you will find like new areas that were unexplored before, somewhere where it's colder. Because, for instance, like, when we make wine out of Washington State, people think about Washington and think, oh my God, isn't it rainy all the time? Yeah, but it doesn't rain as much where the wine is made in Washington, because it's on the other side of the mountains. And so, like, finding another area within the country that it's a little more like protected and and cooler temperature, something that where the weather hasn't affected the Loire and the production. They could be interesting. It could be interesting to see what the next wine region in the States could be.
Yeah, it's going to be both interesting and really scary all at the same time, I think.
Unfortunately, yeah.
But so that the key takeaway: drink everything right now, and then we can worry about the next step next time. And yeah, Lou's on my team.
YOLO, yay.
Go ahead, get really familiar with how things taste right now, and then you can do your own science experiment with the end of the world or whatever it is. There's a nice little dark note to end Wine's Day on, I think. Mike, thank you very much. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask them right now. Send them in the chat, all that kind of fun stuff that we've been doing. Thank you for all of the questions and feedback. It is always appreciated. 2 great Loire Valley wines. Little dark turn on some climate change, but that is all right. It needs to be addressed. I don't know.
Do we want to do the cork thing or the climate change? Damn, I think that.
I don't know. Thank you very much, Mike. I really appreciate
Thank you for having me.
Joining us. Our next Wine's Day is August 24th, 2 weeks from today. Mike, you might want to join this one. We've got Andy from Elephant's Corner, Elephant's Crossing.
Well, I love him.
Yeah, he's a great guy, and cool.
Great wines.
Yeah, great wines. I'm super excited about. It's not one of the wines we're featuring, but we have Sir Richard Branson's Chardonnay on the shelf right now.
Oh yes! Oh my God!
Who knew? The other kind of 2 big events that are happening, September 22nd. It's a Thursday. Don't hold me 100% to that. You'll see it in the newsletter really soon. We have our next in-person sit-down wine tasting, similar to this Spire Wines. We're featuring some Greek wines with my sales rep Jeremy from 3 Keys. So if you've never had Greek wines, you want to eat some dolmas outside of the co-op, it's going to be a lot of fun. You're going to get 3 half glasses of wine. You'll probably get a little more than that if you act well, as I think every attendee last time had a lot more fun than they were guaranteed, which is what we like to do both on Wine's Day and in person. And it's still a ways away, but at the end of October, the last Friday of October to the second Sunday of November is our 20% case wine sale. Go ahead and throwing that out there. Get ready for the holidays. Come drink some wine at the co-op. We'll have vendors hopefully every day. And if not, then you'll see my face, you'll see Maggie's face, you'll see all of the other people that have joined us on Wine's Day over the last couple of years. So thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Polly, for the good show comment.
Yes, thank you.
And we will see everybody at next Wednesday. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me, and have a good one. And cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Cheers.